It's time for another daily drop here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you're watching us on our YouTube channel, that is Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and joining me is our director of basketball recruiting, longtime college AAU and high school coach, Mr. David Sisk. And David, in today's drop, we're going to discuss the class that came in, the class that left, and the job that Hubert Davis did with the Tar Heels in the offseason. So not only did he bring in 5 guys, getting James Okonkwo here recently, but he also got Elliot Cadeau, managed to fit him in as an early entry, a year early, which required getting RJ Davis to agree to move to the 2. So I think we could say that Hubert managed to bring in 6 guys that weren't pegged for Carolina when they walked off the court against UVA in the ACC tournament in March. So how would you grade, if you don't want to give a grade, how would you assess the job that Hubert has done in the offseason rebuilding this program?
I don't think you can give a grade until you see the work in progress. I think it'll be easier to do it once we get into the season because, everything that we look at and say, well, this guy's going to be this good or this guy's going to be that good. It's all speculation right now. But there's 2 things I can say, and the point that I've made all along is that I give him an A from the standpoint that he didn't stand pat. He's a firm believer that it's insanity to do the same thing, expect different results, as the old saying says. And, he last year was a disappointment, but I never looked at last year's team once the season got going and thought that they were going to turn it around at any time. The fits were bad. Offense, ball movement, not good. Defense, not good. They just didn't have the players off the bench. They couldn't make the shots. They were a poor shooting team, one of the worst shooting teams in the country. And so if you went and kept the group that you had and brought everybody back, you're just basically saying, okay, we may window dress the issues that we've got, but we've not really done anything to rectify everything. We'll just hope and pray that they're better. And he didn't do that. And I think he thought, hey, I'm not going through this again. And, he took he's got a whole entirely different looking group, not only a different group, but it's a different looking group that does different things. And you're going to roll out some numbers here, but the first thing that jumps off the page to me is it's a better shooting team. Now, the athleticism, we don't know about yet. I don't think it's going to be a team athletically that's close to what some of the really good to great Carolina teams have been in the past. But I think the skill level's good. So I am much better. So I think maybe it's a more important thing to Hubert Davis when he kind of caught lightning in a bottle 2 years ago. He looked at how good that team shot late in the season and said, hey, that's what, I think we want to be, a team that can really shoot the ball and stretch the defense. And then, when Elliot Cadeau comes in, I don't think people realize behind the scenes, you and I had spoken about this, but it wasn't necessarily a done deal, even though Elliot Cadeau was more than ready to reclass. It wasn't necessarily a done deal that he did that because he had a lot of strings that he had to pull and a lot of maneuvering, because you're taking a guy, number one, you're taking a guy that's who's coming back, one reason because he thinks he's going to be the on-ball guard. So getting him to move off the ball is not an easy thing. And then you've got another on-ball guy who's coming in that class as well. He ends up transferring out. So, man, you ended up with 3 guys that basically thought that they should play point guard. So, man, that's tough. And so they were able to maneuver around that. And I think that may be the most impressive thing that he did, because I'm going to be honest, I just didn't think through the spring, and I'd heard from really, really, really good sources on this behind the scenes, and they were hearing the very same thing I was hearing, and it was coming from different places, that it just didn't look like that RJ Davis and Elliot Cadeau was what could happen together, and it looks like Hubert's made it work. So, and I've got to give him a big pat on the back for that.
I've said quite a few times that trying to get a gauge on what Hubert envisions by what he did in the portal is an interesting endeavor. Now, again, a year ago when they got Pete Nance, we all thought it was a great pickup, and it was exactly what they needed, and it turned out just to not work. It didn't mesh at all. I'm not inclined to go in that direction with these guys. I have a belief that it's probably going to work a little bit more. And one of the reasons is if you look at some of the traits, the attributes that these guys have that Hubert picked up that was lacking a year ago, one of the things that jumps out is they're going to have on the team, let's say the starting lineup is Armando in the paint, and then you got Cadeau, RJ, Cormac Ryan, and Harrison Ingram starting. Those other four outside of Armando have all handled the ball end of clock situations a ton. Now, Elliott obviously is a freshman, so he hadn't done it in college, but that's his wiring. That's his gear. He's going to do it in college. He's already doing it now that he stepped on campus. So I think if you look at the fact that maybe they're not supremely athletic like some Carolina teams, this isn't the Shammond Williams, Jamison Carter bunch that they rolled out back in the day. But when you have a lot of guys who can handle the ball, you have a lot of guys that have vision. And by the way, Wojcik has really good vision off the bench, had good assist numbers at Brown. And you have guys that know how to move and handle spacing and know how to cut and all that kind of stuff. You can become quicker than what your body type says by the way you play the game, by the efficiency with which you play. And when you have players whose heads are up and find guys that are open when they're open or as they're getting open, I think you can make up for some of that. So I believe that this team's going to play faster, in part because it's going to be a higher IQ team. It's going to be a team that reacts really well because they have their heads up. And I think that's the vision that Hubert wants. He wants 10 eyeballs up, knowing where everybody is and reacting accordingly.
Yeah, I can't argue with any of that. Now, like I said, we'll still have to see. You know, when you transfer portal or high school players alike, I mean, they still have to pass the test. But yeah. They obviously, you know, like I said, they're skilled. You can see them kind of meshing together between guys that can put the ball on the floor, guys that can shoot the ball. You know, and like you said, most of them appear to be good passers. And I know one point that you've kind of liked that I made years ago when a college coach told me back about 2018 and 19, he said that you've got to find a way to get old. Now it's a college basketball team, and that's crucial. And man, North Carolina did it through the portal. They've gotten, you know, they got several guys. I mean, you think about how many fifth-year guys. I mean, their teams in the NBA they'll probably have a younger starting lineup than what North Carolina has. You know, teams that are going really young, you know, with draft picks and playing those guys early on. So, you know, you talk about RJ, you talk about Baycott, you talk about other guys. You know,
I'll give you the ages.
They're fourth, fifth-year players. So they know how to play. They're experienced, savvy, know how to play on and off the ball. So, and like I said, I think when you mix that with some guys that can shoot, you think or tend to think that this is a roster that should work.
Yeah, what I did, I read a piece a couple of weeks ago, a deep dive into the portal guys. This is about 5 or 6 days after Okonkwo went ahead and committed. Starting lineup next year, well, outside of Cadeau, who's I guess he's 19 now. He's close to, he'll be 19 in August. But RJ Davis will be 22 when the season starts when they play Radford. Cormac Ryan will be 25 when they play Radford. Harrison Ingram will be 21. Jalen Withers will be 22, almost 23. Armando will be 22, almost 23, I believe it is. At some point in the season, they could start a lineup that they could have a lineup on the floor of a 25-year-old, two 23-year-olds, and a 22-year-old. And, Conquo's 20. He'll be 21 during the season as well. He's a regular third-year player like Ingram is. So, and then, yeah, it's amazing the experience they have. It's amazing how much older they got. And what's crazy is in the last 10 years, we've gone through a cycle in college basketball where a lot of the really good teams were really young, and maybe they weren't ready for a tournament run because it's just very difficult for young teams to make that move. Now, a lot of the teams that are winning are really old. UConn, what did they do last year? They added old guys. They didn't add a lot of young guys. They had that transfer from San Diego. They added a lean from Virginia Tech, older guys, 21, 22 years old, coming off the bench and filling in roles. And that's what I like about what Hubert's done here. Hubert, I think, went ahead and also got a group that he thinks is coachable, a group that will perhaps employ some things he wants maybe more so than the group that left did. And I'm not demeaning the group that left. I just think that there are a lot of proven guys here that have handled roles already for a long time in college. And as a result, they're deeper. They've got more options. I think there's more flexibility. There can be more multiple than before. And by the way, the 3-point shooting you mentioned about being a better shooting team, the group, I wrote it down because I have it in a piece that I ran a couple of days ago. And if you haven't read it, you need to, because I absolutely crunched all the numbers of the 7 guys who went into the portal, the 5 guys who came in from the portal, and then their combined numbers from last year and their careers. And last year alone, the guys that left shot 37.1% from the floor, 30.1% from 3. The guys that came in shot 42.5% from the floor, 34.6% from 3. So certainly a better shooting team, and they were better in other areas as well. Played a lot more minutes as well. So I think it's a clear upgrade, and absolutely guys that can put the ball in the basket from the perimeter is another thing that Hubert was looking at bringing in, and he did. And I think that I'm with you. I'm not going to give a grade, but I think this was a really, really good off season for Hubert. And I think that if one were to give him a grade, he would grade out pretty well up to this point. We'll wait and see what the guys do when they start playing games, but we can only judge to this point, David. And so far, I would give him a very high grade for how he has reconstructed this roster.
Well, if you look at last year's team, I think you really just got to go back and look at the problems. So if you're the head coach, you're going to say, all right, first you've got to identify them. So you identify those problems, you really look at what they were, and then you go about how you want to change that. So I feel like, and that's the thing, you can only do it up front. I mean, if it doesn't work out to the point that the most optimistic North Carolina fan thinks it will, it still doesn't mean he didn't make the right decision. And, so you look, what were the 2 main problems last year? The starting lineup that he had, the strength obviously was getting the ball inside the Baycott. Well, they couldn't get the ball inside the Baycott because they had too many guys couldn't shoot. So the defense could pack it in. So then, how do you alleviate that? You make the outside shot. Well, you can't make the outside shot. Therefore, you can't get the ball inside. So they just strangled each other out. So then your other look is, well, if that group's not able to do it, let's go to the bench. And, a lot of us were saying, well, you can't keep riding the starting lineup. You've got to go to the bench. But he went to the bench enough to know that they weren't ready. They were, as a young group, they weren't ready to get it done. So, whether you agree or not, and some people may not, so they may have needed more of a chance, and maybe some good players got away, blah, blah, blah. When they came in, they just weren't able to make that move and put the ball in the hole and shoot well enough outside and be good enough offensively to stop any of that. So he really had no place to go. So in making this team better for this year, like I said, he identified the problems, and that was, number one, we got to have more people who can contribute, people we can bring off the bench that can make a difference. But the starters that we have We've just got to be better offensively. And I think, and especially, so that's the whole thing to me with North Carolina is, do the perimeters complement Baycott, and does Baycott complement the perimeters? Because as long as he's there, that is what it's going to be based on, because you've got to be able to free each other up. And you're hoping that they've got enough shooters this year that they can do it. Elliott Cadeau can shoot the ball. I watched him enough. We know Carmack Ryan can shoot the ball. Withers had good three-point numbers, you know, at the 4 spot at Louisville. And I'll tell you, the guy that I kind of felt last year, I've kind of felt bad for, was R.J. Davis, because I thought R.J. Davis was really good last year. You know, R.J. just kept making shots, kept making plays, and he didn't have a whole lot of help on the perimeter. You know, Leaky Black offensively, Leaky did a lot of good things, but he wasn't a scorer. And Caleb Love just, you know, he never, ever, ever could get it going. It's like he had that black cloud hanging over him all the time. So it's a new look. But like I said, I think that the backcourt's really, really good. And then you bring some of these other guys in there, and if they're putting the ball in the basket, then you have answered a lot of the questions.
Let us know what you think. You've heard what we think. If you want to give Hubert a grade on how he's reconstructed this roster and what he brought in and what you envision moving forward, tell us that grade and tell us why. Go ahead and drop your comments on the thread here on Twitter, or you can go over to our site and do so. We would prefer you do it on our premium boards because it's just $8.33 a month, which is less than a number at a drive-through now, guys. And it's the same price it's been since I took over this site almost 9 years ago. And if you do that on the board, that means you're hanging out with like-minded Carolina fans like you. You know, when you go to work and there's some guy at work that's a big Carolina fan, but he doesn't know who Jalen Withers is. You don't want to be talking to guys like, it's okay. They could be Carolina fans, but if you want to talk to someone like you, someone who's passionate and who knows who Withers is and knows who Seth Trimble is and knows all this other stuff, go over to our boards. Everyone there knows. You can hang out with like-minded, passionate Carolina fans just like you. Plus, you have access to all of our premium content. And guys, other than these pods, everything David does is premium. Everything he does, and he's always on top of stuff. Plus, keep in mind, we go where the Tar Heels go in football and basketball. He's David. I'm AJ. We appreciate you stopping by.